I am so excited. I'm Mark Sylvester. I'm here with a fellow elder, Dewey Freeman. Dewey, how are you?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
I am good. We're both elders in the nation, and at some point in our life we were uncivilized, or we were civilized then uncivilized, and since we've met Traver, I think we've figured out how to be more uncivilized. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree. I would agree that we're more uncivilized and um, what's the other word? Undomesticated, sort of a
Oh,
combination.
undomesticated. Oh, does that mean when you walk out the door, she looks at you and says, "Oh, you're wearing that?"
No, it means that you walk out the door and she says, "Oh, you're wearing that," and you say yes.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I love that. You know, Dewey, what I thought we would do is you and I have conversations every Saturday afternoon, and it dawned on us that, you know, somebody else should be listening to us. Maybe our therapist, but you are a therapist, and I'm a coach, and so someone should be checking in. But we were thinking that this might be something that the nation would enjoy, and so before we got started, I said, "Give me three words," and you said contact, power, and attachment. And for those that don't know me, I'm the see what you think guy. So I like to draw while we're talking. So if you don't mind, I'm going to free associate while we're talking. Don't get distracted by the drawing, but let's talk for a little bit. And I want to start with contact. And what was interesting when I asked for the words, you bam, you went right there. You saw that word. What does that mean to you?
What does contact mean to me?
Yeah, today on Saturday.
Contact is the place where our emotional, physical, spiritual, and or energetic boundaries touch another's.
Oh.
So
So so okay, keep going. So there are these boundaries,
exactly.
kind of like this. Do they all touch together? Is it more like this?
Well, it can be any combination of those. Sometimes it's physical and emotional. Sometimes it's spiritual
Mm.
and energetic. Sometimes it's all four together. Sometimes it's just two of them. Um,
So
but
let's.
even
Let me give them to me again. I want to write them out. So the first one was emotional.
emotional,
Yep, and the second one was physical.
physical,
Yep, and the third one was
spiritual.
spiritual. And you're um someone kind of had to define spiritual, and they didn't mean religious.
I exactly. I do not mean religious. I mean spiritual.
Got it.
And what I
And
mean
then,
is that
and it,
we're all inexplicably tied
yeah,
together as beings,
yeah.
not just humans, but all beings. So, yes,
And then energetic.
and energetic.
Love it. EPSE. Oh, I'll remember. That's a tattoo if I ever saw
That's a
one.
yes. And what's the coolest part here, Mark, is that I mean we're what 12, 1,500 miles apart from each other,
At least.
and like we're not able to have physical contact where I can
Mm,
come out and say, "Hey, brother,"
hmm.
uh, but energetically,
Yeah.
like there's total contact.
So
And
this energetic, I think emotional too. We've had a couple of emotional connections for sure, right? And definitely um, we have the spiritual. So um,
absolutely,
and so contacts. I think in the context of living these virtual lives that we live right now, that contact is so missing. I think of the two things we want in life. It's significance and connection or love. You could
right.
say, yeah, I want to feel
I
significant.
would say I would agree with the love part, the significant part. I would I can go with that. I would also maybe go with belonging. that.
was so okay. So here's our first little. When I look at love, I think of community and I think of connection. So I kind of put those all words like that together,
Okay.
and then I think of recognition, which is different, and significance as different. And when someone says, like you're at work, hey, did a great job. Doesn't cost me anything to say, hey, you did it. That was awesome. I recognized you. I raised you. You feel significant. Didn't improve your love, your community, your connection. It just touched a different thing. Does that make sense?
Totally. Totally.
But they're both related to contact.
Correct. I would agree with that.
Give
And
me an
well,
example of
and
energetic
well,
contact.
an example of energetic contact is you walk in the room,
Yeah.
you look across the room, you make eye contact with somebody, and you go, "Oh my God,
Mm, he's here or she's here.
he's here,
Yay.
she's here." I may not even have ever seen that person before. Um,
Oh.
it's like,
Oh.
oh, or or you may be standing somewhere, like I'll be up perhaps with my horses, and it's sort of unbelievable that a 1,200-pound
Mm,
horse can walk up to you quietly without you even being able to hear.
right. Right.
But a 1,200-pound horse walking up behind me without me being able to hear them move, and I can feel them. And it's like,
Mm,
oh, okay,
mm,
we're here.
mm.
Um,
You
that,
know, our dear friend Traver said one time, and T, if I'm oversharing, you can spank me later. He said, when I asked, like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you, how do you want to show up? And he said, when I walk into a room or the people I'm working with walk into a room, I want the room to feel significantly different.
exactly.
That's what you're talking about, right?
That's what I'm talking about. And I'm also talking about not only the room feeling significantly different, but as the room feels significantly different, that I get influenced by the room and I feel
Yeah, sure,
significantly different.
sure,
It's like,
sure.
oh, here I am. And that, but what's interesting about that to me is that that's always fluid.
Is it fair to say, and someone's going to have to play buzzword bingo with me because I think I say, is it fair to say too much? So you get a quarter every time. Who's ever listening to this, check it off.
Jack, I'm going to be rich.
That there's this notion of how you show up. And sometimes you show up in an exhale only mode. And then sometimes you show up conversationally. And I think what you explained to me was you show up energetically and they can feel, whoa, something happened. But you also feel it's not exhale only. You're feeling something, and you now are there's this back and forth dance, if you will, but it's this energetic. It's kind of like in standing in front of an audience, right? The audience isn't saying anything, but there's definitely energy being exchanged back and forth.
Absolutely. And in that process, each being or each I'm trying to think each entity that is sharing energy is influencing the other
Hmm.
being. So when I'm in a I'm going to flip on another light. When I'm in conversation with you, your every movement, every literally every exhale, every uh, thought, everything you write affects me. I want to be influenced by you, and and that may be sometimes physical, it may be emotional, it may be spiritually, but it's almost always energetically. All of, and I've not quite thought of this way before, but all of those other three include some energetic interaction.
How do you how do you cultivate that? Like if you kind of come in lukewarm, that's your energy. How might one cultivate that?
Cultivate raising.
The energy. How do I turn it up a bit?
Actually, I'm not sure it's turning it up a bit. It
Hmm.
might be more opening ourselves up a bit.
Oh,
If I want more connection and contact with you, for instance, I can open myself up energetically. I can literally create an opening that could invite you in, and or I can close that opening with under certain circumstances and maybe not let something or somebody in. Um, when I create it, when and if I create that opening to say invite you in, when you step in, if you choose to step in, part of what I need to be available for is contact when you step into that opening,
hmm.
or vice versa. Because you've created many openings for me, and if I step into that and you're available for contact, I, me stepping into that, I'm also bringing a level of my own availability for contact with you.
It feels like what you just said reminded me of improv. And when we're working with someone, there is this energetic connection that you make. Like we start by looking each other in the eye and try to feel the energy. And we're as open as possible. And the whole idea is to be open. And then there's going to be something in your energy, something I look at you and I go, she'll be back. And that was what I was getting. And then you're going to either step into that and go, yeah, I miss her already. And we're off 45 minutes later, right? That's
Right.
kind of what we're talking about, isn't it?
That's exactly. And so when you create that for somebody, at least the when I've experienced that with you, what I've experienced is an invitation in and also a reaching out. That's been my experience with you, which has been very different than with many people. Sometimes there's an invitation in and sometimes there's a reaching out, but being able to do that simultaneously, it feels to me like that's one of your gifts.
I'm going to be very honest and say that I don't exactly know that I do that. So I appreciate that. Can you give me an example of how I did that? Because it sounds like something I'd like to do more of. Or maybe it's just one of those things. It's funny when you're trying to, like, I'm always working on that 1% better. Can I be 1% better? Can I
Right.
be, so it's an intentionality, right? Can I be, now that you've told me about this, I can't not want to know, well, that sounds good. How do I do that more?
In you make me think about stuff big time.
That's the ladies and gentlemen, or gentlemen, this is why we're recording this,
Yeah.
because when you have open, honest conversations, I told my wife that Saturdays are for smart people. I want to have I have conversations and Saturdays where I can do that, and I hope that when I ask a question that you don't have something chambered up, because
Oh, I don't.
that's something that's living here. I want to get much deeper than that. So I appreciate, and I do not edit these. So if there's a long pause, it's going to be worth it.
Well, you just did what I described. You invited me in and asking me, how do I do that? And then you also stepped in and made contact with me. So it's like not only relationally, I think between the two of us, is there a piece of creating openings for each other. Each of us is also holding the other's best interest at heart.
Amen.
And
Amen.
so when you create an opening and say, hey, man, what about this? You're also doing that with coming in with and you mean something to me.
Hmm.
Have your best interest at
Hmm.
heart when I'm,
Hmm.
so it's an inviting in and then also checking and reaching out at the same time. So you literally just did what I described, whether you know you were doing it or not.
Just deep in the Sylvester DNA somehow. This core belief that I'm always paying attention and caring for the person I'm talking with.
Exactly. One of the things that happens in many, many relationships, and literally, what time is it? I don't know, 3:22, something like that. I just finished an hour and a half session with a couple. Each person in that couple were going, I want you to meet my needs. No, I want you to meet my needs. Well, these are my needs. You meet my needs. No, you meet my needs. That doesn't work. But that's
Mm-mm.
what many people think what relationships are. Versus if I'm going, Mark, my dear friend, what are your needs right now? And you're going, Dewey, my dear friend, what are your needs right now?
And we're caught in a do loop there. What can I
Yeah,
do for you?
right. But what happens is it goes like this
Yeah.
instead of being up here and my needs, no, my needs, no, my needs, my needs.
Yeah.
And when that happens at the end, both people end up starving. I
Isn't it
mean,
interesting? You just painted a picture of de-evolution as opposed to what we do, which is evolution.
exactly.
We start with some idea. Today it's contact, and we don't need anything more than that to be able to say, okay, what does that look like? And we start talking. I turned off the drawing because I wanted to be able to see you better and to be able to react better to you. Back to this notion of contact in this virtual world. Thankfully, I know you got vaccinated. You're a fireman, a volunteer fireman, and you've had your second shot, so you're good to go. I read the fine print. It says I won't. It doesn't mean I won't get it. It just means I probably won't go to the hospital. I hope. Fingers crossed.
Right, probably won't die from it.
So I had a shot this week. I
Oh,
got
your
texted and
first
they
shot?
said, if you can be here in 2 hours, we'll give you a shot. I said, thank you so much. I'll be there. It was nothing. I'm fine. Uh, but the reason I went there is because I, like everyone else, I'm human. I crave human contact and I crave just being around people. And I think as important, I crave not being afraid of being around people.
Exactly.
Right. And, and I want to go into this a little bit more because I know there was a period in my life where it was like it was all about what am I getting? What am I getting? What am I getting from my job? What am I getting from my spouse? What am I getting from everything is what I get. And then there was some phase shift, and it's then what can I give? And we hear that all the time. Like people who are advising us, your website should be everything you give, your business should be everything you give. And to really get the most out of something, it's not what you get out of it, it's what you put into it. And that all feels like platitudes and stuff that people say. But the whole point of this conversation with elders is say, God damn it, learn how to do that when you're 20. Don't wait until you're 65 to do it.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, which leads me, I mean, you asked me and I contact and leads me to the other two words, which is power and attachment, were the other two words.
So I'm going to go back to drawing because I want to make sure that we do not miss this.
Okay.
So attachment, talk to me.
Attachment, and for this conversation, I'm going to narrow this down big time.
Okay.
Attachment is the core of attachment is a process of creating trust between two beings, two or more
Oh,
beings.
got it. Got
It's
it.
creating what I would call the I, thou, we relationship.
I've heard you talk about this. I, thou. You talked about it with Traver.
Yeah.
And this, a process of creating trust between at least those two.
Yes.
Okay. Now I've drawn it. I want to talk because
Well, can you go back to the drawing one?
of course I can. That's the yes and, sir. I can easily do that.
Because this is a big deal.
Okay.
There are many, many, many attachment theories and research out there.
Mm.
All of them, and this is what I talk about when I speak about attachment and trust, is that what creates trust between
Mm.
two beings. And the two beings can be you and me, it can be me and my dog, it can be two horses, it can be between partners, it can be between parents and children. Um, what creates trust is being able to go through a difficult time
Mm. Mm. Mm.
in contact relationship with another being and come out okay.
Yeah. I've heard that called crisis bonding. Is that right?
Well, in heavy duty situations, it is in war and
Yeah.
emergencies, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be that.
Got it.
In infancy, it's a baby crying, maybe in a
Mm.
cradle and going, and the mother or father reaches over and rocks and they go, that's a whole thing.
Got it. So
It,
there's this we will now invent something that we call the difficulty continuum.
ooh, I like that.
Difficulty continue with. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we're recording the show, because
Yes.
we do this every Saturday. And we said, shit, why aren't we sharing this? So this is the baby crying, right?
It's the baby crying. It also might be something like maybe you and I are trying to connect through our Zoom and one of us can't quite get on.
Mm.
And it's like, oh. And the other one
tech
goes, oh, well,
tech challenges.
yeah, well, press this button. Oh, okay, thanks. I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
I love that.
or, we're out and one of us slips and falls and the other one goes, hey,
Hey, I got
you
you.
help the other one up. Or,
So what's on the other side then? This is, I could imagine on the On the pretty terrible side, it would be in combat.
I think this could be in combat. It can be in um, car accident where
Yeah,
bodies and body parts is thrown all over the
yeah,
place. It can
yeah,
be um, I mean those kinds of things. It can be,
yeah,
you know, 4 or 5 weeks ago, I severely injured my thumb.
yeah. You did.
The
How's your thumb
people,
doing? Let me show everybody your thumb.
I'm I'm heading in the right direction,
Yeah,
big time. But like the people that literally drove me to the hospital, it's like it's not to the place of where war is, but it's also not back here where the baby's crying.
it's in between.
And
On the difficulty continuum, we'll have Traver create some merch for that. I'm taken with the sentence, a process of creating trust. I'm I'm way too process driven. He said, I just I love recipes. I love formulas. I'm a chef. I love process. It's repeatable. The first one's always a bitch, but once you figure it out, then it's rinse and repeat. I love processes until it's time to break it. And I'll give you that. So when you said, you were very specific, a process of creating trust, which implies to me there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and the end is trust has been achieved. What's the beginning of the process?
the beginning of the process is the first point of contact.
So is it back to contact, which we said earlier, which is the intention of, I had a visual earlier, the shields are down.
Yeah, the shields are down. So let me talk about two things here. One is, to me, contact are the building blocks.
Oh,
So each time we make contact, that's a building block.
hmm.
We make contact again, that's another building block.
With the same person.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
process. That contact, when that becomes predictable over time, that creates connection between people.
sure. Yeah,
When that becomes predictable over time, that creates relationship.
yes. Okay, keep
When
going.
that becomes predictable over time, that creates intimacy.
Ah,
And so that's another part of the continuum. If you remember back the first time you and I spoke with each other, it was like both of us ended up very excited. And it was like, wow, wow, somebody that we can connect with, somebody that has had 65 plus years experience, somebody that's been creative, somebody that, and if I don't know exactly what your experience was, but certainly my experience is that was incredibly wonderful and exciting. Now, when I speak to you, it's still wonderful and exciting, but the depth of it is dramatically different than it was
hmm,
that time.
hmm,
And each time is one more piece of the building block, one more piece
hmm.
of the building block, one more piece of the building block. And um, and over time, it's like we have a relationship, we have a level of intimacy.
Yeah, yeah,
You, as far as I'm concerned, you're not an acquaintance, you're not a friend, you're a brother, you're a very good friend, and it's like there's a level of intimacy, and it's like where you get to see my heart and my soul, and
yeah,
you share yours with me,
yeah.
and so um, but that would not happen if if we weren't making contact each time that we met and during the hour that we spend with each other.
It was interesting. Traver had introduced us. He's you got to meet this guy. And whatever it was, he said, and we talked, and we're both of an age, and that first Saturday was definitely exhilarating. And a lot of times someone introduces you to someone and, hey, you ought to meet someone. Yeah, okay, thanks, cool. Thank you. Bye-bye. But at the end, it's like, could we do this again? I think we both said it. Could
Right.
we do this again?
Most at the same time.
And that was probably only 8 weeks ago. I don't think it was long. It
Yeah.
might have been 10 weeks ago, but it certainly wasn't
Much
longer
more than
than
that.
that.
And true. Exactly.
And yet, I mean, just look, folks, you can get super close and be 1,600 miles away because, like, for me, it was making a priority to have this kind of conversation at least for an hour in my life. Of the 160 hours in the week, one of those hours would be uh, meaningful and allow me to. I'm not trying to sell something. I'm not trying to buy something. I'm not trying to
And
exert
gain
influence. Right? You're truly, and I wonder, and I'm thinking of most of the guys in the nation are a generation younger than us. Should they find someone in their life, in their ecosystem, someone that they can have this free, unfettered hour to just go where the wind takes them, build these attachments?
absolutely. And here's one of the pieces, and actually Traver spoke about this the other day in his class, is many times we as men get told that we should only be doing this with women.
Well, there's that should word, but
Right.
keep going. Yeah.
And two things. One is that it's like we get scared away of doing this with men
Hmm. Hmm.
because we're taught to compete, we're taught to blah, 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 instead of connect. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is, and this has been one of my experiences, and it really connects into what you're saying, Mark, is it's taken me this long to find there's one other man in my life that I can talk this way with who's like 2 or 3 years older than me. But we're also living very different lives and we don't connect quite as often. Um, but it's taken me this long to find a man
Hmm.
that I can share this way with.
Hmm. I appreciate that, brother.
Well, thank you. And I think it's part of elderhood.
Hmm.
And part of that is I'm not sure what I wish is that when I was 40 or 45 or 50 or even 55 is that I would have a 70-year-old, 67-year-old man to help me walk through things. And I couldn't find it. I couldn't find that person. And one of the things, and I heard this and I can't remember where I got this from. Um, oh, I want to give this. I want to give him credit because uh, he does a lot on dying and the process of dying. I'll look it up, but I'm not trying to steal his thunder. I just can't quite remember his name right now. He talks about there's a lot of people who get older, but they're not elders. There's an olderhood versus an elderhood.
Huh. Huh.
And
That's I'll ruminate on that for a bit.
um, and I think it's a developmental process. I think that some people can be 65 or 70, but developmentally be 12.
So how do we, doctor, how do I rectify the fact that most often in my head I'm 20, 26?
that's where you're at in your soul, but that's not where you're at in your experience.
Hmm. Fair enough.
It's like I live on the side of a mountain. I run up and down this thing all day long. I'm plowing 2 feet of snow last week. It's like I don't feel like I'm 70 either.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
When I was 26, though, I got treated like I was 50 because I was always the elder in my crew. I was a chef manager when I was 20, running a restaurant here in Santa Barbara, and I was the boss. I was 20. I would not trust a 20-year-old for nothing, but I was responsible, and I was the boss. I mean, I was an elder. I acted as if I was an elder.
right.
So what is that?
So what is that?
Yeah. What is that? I mean, there
Oh,
was a very definite
was hired
feeling.
I know. I was hired as a school principal when I was 27 years old,
See, okay, well, there you go.
and I, what I felt like. I mean, I had to grow up. I had to learn some stuff, but I felt like a fraud. It's like
Well,
I
we're going to save imposter syndrome for another show,
fair
but
enough.
I think it's possible that elderhood is not age dependent.
I would agree with that.
There we go. That we finally got to the nub of that. What was our third word?
Power.
Power. Let's start up a new slate. Let's talk about power for a second.
So this is one of my most favorite things.
Oh, is it? Why is that?
Because I have played with it a lot. I have to share this. This is in the podcast, so I'm not overstepping Mr. Traver.
He's gonna wonder why he asked us to do this show. You know that. So you guys ought to do a show. Okay, T, we got you.
Yeah, exactly. I started talking about this, and he goes, "Well, I fucking love power and control. What's wrong with that?" And I'm going,
That's going in the annals right here.
"All
It
right,
says, what was it? I fucking
love power and
love
control."
love power and control. Traver is yelling at the computer right now. And he's calling us both a couple of fucking legends, aren't you, T?
Well, and he's laughing probably so hard he can't stay in his chair.
Yeah. There you go. That's how
All
we
right,
roll, guys. Okay, back
right.
to power.
So
What does it mean in this context today?
this context today, there's a difference, and I know that this could be debated on a semantic level, so I'll admit that to begin with. These are my definitions. There's a huge difference between power and control. Control is that thing that we do when we don't trust. So this is why it ties in with attachment, because if you remember what attachment is about, is the process of creating trust between
Yep.
two beings, two or more beings. But control is that thing that we do when we don't trust.
Got it.
So Kimberly, my partner, she's out with one of her friends and her friend's children, and they're hiking, and I don't know, she'll be home at 4 or 5 or 6. I don't know exactly when, but I don't have to control her. I don't even know exactly where she's at. I trust her. It's like, okay, go have fun. I'll see you later. We'll have a great dinner tonight. Many times people think that kind of control is what power is. Power, from my perspective, is the ability to influence and be influenced in contact, in relationship with another being.
Got it. To influence and be influenced.
Correct. I want to influence you, and I want to be just as influenced, or maybe even more influenced by you.
By another human.
Right. Be
Well, I'll say
influenced.
another person.
Right. The ability to influence and be influenced in contact and relationship.
Yep,
Yeah,
which
right.
we've already talked about.
Right. So that's how they all tie together
Ah, got it.
is the contact. It's like I need to be able to know how to be in contact with you if I
Yeah.
want to influence you, and I will, and to be influenced by you. I want
So
to be, and I want to do that in a way that I trust, so I'm not just trying to control the shit out of you.
you know, we spend a lot of time thinking about influence. I have a Kimberly. You have a Kimberly. I have a Kimberly. She runs storytelling school, and the core idea of storytelling school is that it's the influence expansion system. So the belief
Oh,
is that stories help you expand your influence. So
whoa,
yeah, right. So
that's a
we
big.
think about it all the time. How do I influence an attitude? How do I influence a behavior? How do I influence a decision? How do I influence an idea? How do I and all in and I would say a word for me, control comes up for you, but for me it would be manipulation. It's not manipulation at all, but some people will go the dark side of that. It's influence in a sense that you it's going to go back to our contact. It is truly knowing that this thing is good, this idea is good for you. And I need to find the way to influence you, to have you opened to accept this idea that clean eating, good exercise, sleep, whatever that thing is that I know is going to be good for you. So the power, this is the Jedi power, is being able to figure out how do I need to get into you so I can connect, right? So we can have this build this uh, one thing after another, the bricks that you were talking about,
Right,
and it's the
right, right.
power to be influenced. So that's the continuum of all three in place. Yeah.
Yep, you got it. And what's interesting is one of the ways in to influence another being is to allow yourself to be influenced by that other
Back to the improv piece, which is the two of us on
person. Yeah,
stage with
yeah.
nothing. And I look at you and I say, yeah,
Mhm.
she's gone. And you're like, yeah, she'll be back. And now what you said influenced me big time
And you
because I'm
might,
like, well, you know that. You really know she's going to be back, don't you?
right. And I might say, yeah, but you got to trust her.
Yeah,
And then you
boy.
might say, well,
I'll say whatever I say. And that's in our coach, our improv coach, he likens conversations to building this evolution, but we build it one brick at a time, and the audience gets to learn these two people's point of view one brick at a time.
which
Just
is
like people are watching us today, learning one sentence back and forth at a time, they get to understand
right,
who we are.
right. And as we go further with it, then we can create more openings for each other. We can talk about more about what ends up being closer to our hearts and our souls, about what uh, we can shift. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, you had a death in your family that shifted. That influenced you, but that influenced me, which it shifted what we did that week.
Yeah.
And because of the other connections, uh, It was okay.
I'm gonna
Everything
for
is
those
possible.
playing buzzword bingo, you're gonna hear improv from me a lot because it's had a profound it's as profound an impact on my life as martial arts and meditation have. And one of the one of the rules, and I love how you keep every time I finish say you say yes, and then you add something to it, which is the purest form of improv. What happens is to this point of being of influencing and being influenced and listening and always giving that playful back and forth, and it's conversational, it's not exhale only, all the things we've been talked about. Where this breaks is when I have an idea of where this conversation needs to go,
Right.
and I'm waiting for you to fucking shut up so I can say what I want to say, because I want to drive this thing. I want to exert power over this conversation, as opposed to, okay, I was prepared, I had something, but then you said something that shifted. So that influences me, and I'm gonna put that idea in the parking lot. It may come back later, it may not, it doesn't matter. What matters is that I was listening to you
Right.
enough to react and add. That made me feel, that made me think. Did you mean so? You've Those are all
Exactly.
different kinds of responses, as opposed to, yeah, whatever. What I really want to talk about is this.
Right. Yeah. And what you just described is that shift, and you used the word power. Again, I'm very open to going, oh, this is semantics. These are your definitions, Dewey. I get that. But you went from describing power to describing control.
Yeah, right. Because we didn't have any trust. Because I didn't trust that the thing you had to, where you wanted to take the conversation was where it needed to go. I didn't trust. But if
Well,
I trust you, because I know you have my best interests at heart, and I have your best interests at heart. So why would you ever take us down a path where I'm fucked?
exactly.
You wouldn't. And I know that.
Absolutely not. In fact, if I saw us going down that path, or if I saw something that was leading down that path, I mean, the image that just went through my mind was the, the rabbit hole of literally reaching into the rabbit hole, grabbing you by the
I can feel it
collar and
pulling.
go, come on back out, come on back out. We don't need to go there.
That's called being a Sherpa, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. That'll work. But
Right?
that's what, yeah, that's what it is. And I might say something, and you might go, "Gosh, I got this other idea though too," and I go, "Okay, cool." But neither are negating the other.
It's to that point exactly. We practice every Friday night. There's our crew, the pandas. We practice, and breaking the habit of saying no, but, or but,
Right.
that is so deeply, deeply ingrained in who we are as humans. And it takes an external, in our case, an external coach who he'll stop scene, stop scene. Ugh. And he growls a little bit, he says, "You guys," and it's funny. He'll take a sticky note and it'll say yes, and he'll just put it on his forehead like that. I said, it doesn't matter what they say, just say yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I know that when Kimberly and I met 17, 18 years ago, I explained this notion of yes and in a relationship.
Mhm.
I'd never taken an improv class. I had heard that one time. It was like, okay, will be one of our guiding principles will be to yes and it wasn't until 6-ish years ago that we really learned what that meant. And I would
Right.
just encourage anybody listening to go to the Google machine and just type the word improv in your city, and then there's probably going to be an improv workshop in your city that you can get into
Oh, you gotta go play.
and just go play and have fun and laugh, and don't do the Zoom. I mean, just go have fun and laugh. Dewey, we're coming up on an hour, and we have just tried the patience of our listeners, and hopefully maybe they took a note or two. I'm gonna save the 3 images as a PDF and give them to Traver, so they can attach, because I think there's definitely some learning. Why don't we just quickly go back over it and say, okay, so we started with this idea of contact, power, and attachment, and
Right.
we talked about these spheres of contact: emotional, physical, spiritual, and energetic, and how
Right.
those connect
How
in
they touch.
twos or threes or four, right? And
Exactly.
then we looked at what attachment is. And yep, there's a lot of different attachment theories, but I love the line of process of creating trust. We came up with the difficulty continuum. We
I
should
love
trademark
that.
that.
Yeah. I think we got it.
So people can understand it, because I think what happens is we tend to overblow stuff. Like we just make, what do they say, make a mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah.
We make something more than it really is. So just kind of understanding where you are on that difficulty continuum, just to, and knowing that when you don't run away. I would say don't run away from the difficulty, lean into the difficulty, because the net to you will be trust with that person you're leaning in with. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then the third one is power, the ability to influence and be influenced by another person.
And those happening in contact and relationship, that's the big deal part of it.
Now, see, the thing is, people pay hundreds of dollars to go and talk to people like you in the privacy of our homes to get this kind of stuff. And we're freely giving this away to the members of the nation, because we really care for our brothers. And
Really cool.
if they could, at 20 or 30 or 40 or 50, learn some of these things now, and it can make a change in their life. Like, it only takes that long to change,
Right.
that long.
Totally.
And then you write this down on a sticky note, put it up in your mirror so you can see it, and just for a week, observe with interest how you show up in relationships.
Yeah.
Observe yourself. Have your little watcher on. I like to have a watcher on right here with a little camera. It's got a little GoPro on him, and he's just watching my life.
A little GoPro right
Yeah,
here.
right there
Will
in
do.
real time. Someone's watching your life, but watch your own life and see how you're doing with that. And with that, Dewey, I think that that was a great show. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. And I hope this goes out. I hope this is helpful to people. Um, I'm honored to be an elder with you.
I'm sure it will be, as am I.